So how do I get approval for a CDC for a secondary dwelling? What are some of the things you need to understand around CDCs for secondary dwelling, and our best advice for you at this stage? My name is Colin Frager from Council Approval Group. Now, if you've got this point and you're actually looking at a CDC for a secondary dwelling, it shows you're quite discerning. You know what you're talking about. You've probably heard a few phrases around the industry, and I'd like to acknowledge that and probably move away from the basics, which I've covered in other videos, and go into probably in a little bit more depth some of the more sophisticated side of things. So a CDC, which is the Complying Development Certificate, is done by a certifier. Now, why would you want to choose to do that? Well, some of the reasons which are often talked about is a quicker approval process. It's often sometimes easier, but I also want to flip that around and challenge some of that thinking, because what we have found, having done a lot of these, and I'm talking thousands, is that the CDC process is not all it's cracked up to be, and it's often a better outcome, usually a better outcome, I should say, for going through the council approval process. You still end up with a secondary dwelling. It just means that we need to go through council instead of a certifier. Now, there's some advantages in that. One of the advantages is that if you go through council, there's sometimes room for departures. There's zero room for departures with a certification certificate, that you just can't bend the rules. The application process through council often is talked about as a slower process, but really, if you have the right system and the right experts like ourselves behind you, there's not really too much difference. And if you were to spend an extra month, say, or 2 months in getting the right approval in place, which would you rather? A quicker bad approval, or an extra 1 or 2 months to get the right approval for you and your family? I would encourage you, if you haven't already, to grab a copy of the Ultimate Guide in Achieving Council Approval, so you can get that, have that on your coffee table, flick through it with your loved ones, think about what you want to do with your CDC for a secondary dwelling, or do you want to do something else? Also, I would highly recommend that you speak to one of the experts, being the Council Approval Group. And so we would love to be able to offer you a 30-minute consult for you to be able to book in at the appointed time. We'll go through your project, your property, what you want to achieve. Maybe there's something even better that we can come up with that we haven't even talked about today. My name is Colin Frager from Council Approval Group. Thanks for watching.